Welcome to Curiosity Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Watkins. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. I truly hope that it helps you as a listener. I really want to engage in educational content and information regarding in-home care. So I really hope that this finds you well, and I really hope that these episodes can help you in your journey of caregiving. Well, today I want to talk about documentation. Why is caregiver documentation so important? I in my company with Curiosity, I am a stickler. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. I am a stickler for complete and accurate documentation. And I don't think it's possible to go overboard with documentation. And here's why. Because there might be some information that you document that may not be important to you, but that may be important to another caregiver or maybe a professional care provider. Things like blood pressure and fluctuations in blood pressure and things of that nature. If you document your client's vital signs, that information may not be highly important to you, but that could be very highly important to someone else. So providing accurate and complete documentation is vital to not only communication, but it's vital in improving the quality of care that you give to your client. So you want to make sure, if you are an independent caregiver caring for a number of clients, that you keep either a written record or electronic record of every single visit that you make with your client, because you never know when you're going to have to fall back on some information. Our minds are only so good at remembering certain amounts of information. Some are better than others, but nonetheless, having a permanent document of point of care documentation. And what do I mean by point of care? Point of care simply means that you document it on the spot before you leave the client's home. In Curiosity, I have the caregivers, each caregiver have point of care documentation that they have to fill out for each visit that they make. It doesn't matter the client, it doesn't matter how many hours they're there. If they were clocked in and working with a client, they have to provide point of care documentation before they leave the client's home. And it's very vital that documentation is done before you leave. And the reason is kind of simple, because, like I said, our minds can only remember so much. So if you're documenting point of care, you won't forget things. But if you leave the client's home and go do a few other things and then remember, I got to document, you're probably going to forget some important things. So it's vital to have point of care documentation. And the same goes for family caregivers. If you are a family member that's caring for a loved one, documentation is very important and vital in your role as well. And you could use that information for the same reasons that my company uses that information, to improve the quality of care for your loved one and see declines. And declines are when your loved one is capable of doing some things one day, and then maybe a few weeks or a few months down the road, they are incapable of doing that same task. And so I want you to keep in mind that how things are right now are not going to be how things are months, days, weeks down the road, or years down the road. So complete and accurate documentation as a family caregiver is very important as well, because you can share that information with the professional care provider. You can share that information with physical therapy for your loved one, occupational therapy, or even to see if physical therapy might be needed, because if there is a decline, but physical therapy can assist with getting your loved one back to the point where they can complete that task again. Perhaps your loved one had a stroke. They were dressing themselves, they were eating them by themselves, they were putting on their own shoes, they were bathing themselves, and then all of a sudden they had a stroke, and now they can't do those tasks. But with the help of physical therapy and occupational therapy, your loved one can come back to being able to either 100% complete those tasks, or at least mostly complete those tasks themselves. So complete and accurate documentation is very vital in keeping open communication with other family members, with other caregivers, with professional care providers such as your doctors, PT, OT, and others. And so it not only fosters open communication, but it helps improve the quality of care. Those are two main bullet points I want you to take away from this, is that complete and accurate documentation is vital in open communication and improving the quality of care. Now, what certain things do you need to document? Well, that's where you have to assess where you're at. If you're a family caregiver and you have not been keeping documentation up to this point, and now you're realizing that maybe you should, there are a number of things that you need to do as far as assessment. My company, Carosity, we provide, when we take on a new client, we come into the home where the client is. We meet with family members, we meet with the client themselves, and we perform what is called a care plan. And what this care plan does is it goes into extreme detail of the client's lifestyle, home life, medical conditions, medications, skin assessment, mental and emotional health assessment, the whole 9 yards. And I would recommend that you do the same for your loved one. You might, of course, your loved one, but as a family caregiver, you kind of want to step out of that role as daughter or son or uncle or brother or whatever you might be to the person you're giving care to. You might want to step out of that role and look at your loved one from a fresh pair of eyes. That's another thing that you can do, is maybe have a professional come in and do a care plan for you. My company offers that for free. If there's a family caregiver and they need to figure out what kind of help they need, we will absolutely 100% come into that home and do a complete care plan at no charge at all to help you know where you're at and where you need to go. So those things are very important to do. If you are a professional caregiver and you have clients, I suggest you do the same for your clients, even if you've been with your clients for a number of years. Go in with a fresh pair of eyes, do a complete overhaul assessment, and keep that updated. My company updates every 2 months. Every 60 days, my clients get new care plans performed so we can keep up with declines and keep up with where the client is at, all to foster communication and improvement of care. Documentation will improve the continuity of care. It helps you understand where you are and where in the future you might need to be going. There are different resources out there. If you choose to notebook it, then you, by all means, do what is comfortable to you. But there are apps out there that you can use to help organize and document care for your loved one or care for your clients. Now that is pretty high tech, but some of the applications that I'm thinking about, one in particular is called Connected Caregiver. And Connected Caregiver, I checked it out myself a couple months ago to help other family members out. You set up a profile, you invite other family members, and you set up their schedule, you set up their medication, and you set up all that. And all of the family members that you have invited to that profile can see everything that needs to be done. And it just helps organize the whole family. If you have multiple family caregivers, that's a good way to go. But even if you just notebook and pen it and, paper calendar everything, that is completely A-okay. Just make sure you have open communication with your other family members. If you're an independent caregiver, make sure you have open communication with other caregivers. You want to make sure communication is always open, and complete and accurate documentation will make that happen. This is all to make sure that your loved one or your client gets the care that they deserve and need. That's what it boils down to. It's not about being exasperated because there's one more thing to add to your list. If you're a family caregiver, you want what's best for your loved one. And keeping an accurate journal documentation of the care you provide will help. Well, I think that's all I have for this episode. I truly hope you take away something from this. I know that this type of thing is always on my mind, and this podcast is absolutely free. There's no ads. I don't ask for donations or anything. I just want to use this as a platform to become a resource for other caregivers who need guidance and help. And I hope this helps and guides you along your journey of caregiving. Thank you so much for listening. Be well.